It's raining yet again. Now, as many of you know, we don't just do control railway videos on how signalling operations work. We're also interested very heavily in engineering, and especially in old engineering, because the forerunners to most of the stuff we have today has its engineering principles set back well in history. And it's good to know some of those engineering principles and how they worked. Some simple ideas still around today. A good example right behind me, the Anderton Boat lift here in Cheshire. We're going to have a look at that in a bit, and also we're going to take a look back at some very early water engineering down at Wheel Martyn Museum in Cornwall in the first part of this video. So, why does it have to keep raining? So the water that comes down out the quarry with all the slurry in it, because why push it down, just let the water carry the slurry down. That goes into pits over there and settles, and then the waste water comes back down here, goes in that overshoot, called an overshoot, it goes over the top, undershoot goes underneath. So it goes in that overshoot, drives the wheel, big 16-foot wheel. There's a epicyclic off the wheel, which is that thing that's going like that. That pushes that, which is a balance weight. It's full of old truck tyres and rail wheels and everything. That's,
to show how it resembles.
well, it gives it weight, so it, as soon as it stops pushing, the weight helps it pull it down, yeah? Because the one thing you've got to remember, you see it's pushing all these rods, yeah? And those rods and wires go all the way up to that water pump up there, yeah? About 100 feet between the two. All that weighs something. So once you've pulled it one way, you've got to push it back. So to help push it back, you use that. That weight helps push it back, yeah? It's counterbalance, yeah? And at that end, see it's pushing up here, where it goes up the hill, every now and then they have like a traveller. Just a set of rail wheels. So this is a traveller up and down. It goes over guide wheels like them. Well, that quarry up the top there, it's about 300 feet away, had one of them going all the way up. When it needed to turn a corner, it went on an angle. I think it was called Bishop's hand that turned it. And that works a water pump there. It's pumping 26 gallons of water, which is enough to pump that round. So it's using the same water, no wastage. And then that water will go down and be used for more stuff down there and down there and down there and so on. So you're just using gravity to do everything. Clever. There's two working water wheels at Wheel Martyn. The first one when you come into the main exhibition centre, and that does much the same job as the display one behind the dryers. A lot of the water wheels on site were also used to power the machinery up the hills in the quarries. Don't forget, you've got to pump the water out of the pit as you're digging it, because it just fills up and gets in the way. Yeah. But you can use the gravity of that same water to take the china clay slurry back down to the dryers, where it can be settled and then dried out and produced into a product. So these push rod systems go all over the site, cast iron push rods mounted on stands and wheels up and down the hills. In fact, this one, they had to build a tunnel to get the rod through to the quarry. There was such a big hill in the way. And as I mentioned, there are turning parts up and down the site as well. Only one's preserved now. It's in a bit of a ruinous state, but this shows you how they got the push rods around the quarry to the various pumps up and down. And they also used inclines to get the product in and out, rope worked inclines. And finally, the slurry was brought down into the dryers, where it was poured from this traversing wagon up and down this long room, and eventually just fires underneath would dry that out, then turn it into a dry product, and it moved down through the production line to being bagged and sent off. Our second stop is to the Anderton Boat lift in Cheshire. This has been working since 1872 and has been powered various different ways. Originally it was hydraulic to start with, but due to the caustic nature of the river water and the canal water and the sulphur and the salt in it eventually rusted through a lot of the components, so they motorised it, and balance weights that allowed the caissons with the ships in to be counterbalanced. They're now still on site, you'll see them in the video. Some serious weight there. As of 2022, it's been restored again and it's electrically operated now. And we'll just show you some of the operations of taking a couple of boats through. There's a lovely museum there. It's totally free to enter, and it's got some visual displays in there, and you can actually see into the control room as well, which is quite nice. So let's have a watch of the boat going through the lift system.
Even better, fantastic modern hydraulic system. They even preserve some of the 1908 electrical conversion on site. It's important to hold its royal heritage.
So that stops it tipping.
And on the 26th of March 2002,
Get some
with
gates
a
on
crowd
gates.
of VIPs and a crowd of supporters and enthusiasts watching, the lift was back in business, and still is to this day.
Now you can flow through.
Now, up there's a 20 years and that heads up to
From the top canal to the bottom canal is a 30-metre drop. And you can probably just make out the hydraulic ram there in the centre of the caisson that's been lifted up to accept the boat coming from above. Both caissons, the one for the ship going down and the one for the ship going up, are counterbalanced against each other hydraulically. And a couple of guys operate it, one in the control room overseeing everything. It is in auto mode the day we were doing it, and he was just overseeing everything. But there's an operator on the top floor and an operator on the bottom floor overseeing things, and the gates as well that protect the caissons. So you saw the modern control room upstairs there now that overlooks the operation. When the two boats come in, they're coming in here from the lower canal. Up there on top's the upper canal. Boats come into that section on the upper canal, which is in itself has two sets of locks on either side, two sets of gates. Motor operated gates that winch up out of the way. That keeps a section of water in there. And then there's that little section there you can just see in the middle. That section there. And that's like a small mini lock in effect that bridges between the upper section and the section when it's dropped out. Now that one's down here at the moment. You can just see down there. That's where the canal boat will come in. Bump up against the wooden rubbers on either side, and they'll seal the back gates behind it. And then when it's balanced up on the top one, which is up there at the moment, just sat in mid-air, once they're ready to go and those two buttresses have been sealed off, then the hydraulics will start to work the system. All these motor wheels on top, you can see. The gentleman was telling me that they're not in use anymore. They're still there, but everything's been motorised in its second refurbishment. It's nice to see, and you can't really make it out unfortunately, but there's a maker's plate down there. Emerson Murgatroyds, which is a Stockport based firm, it's just down there. Hill. The sign is just down there and buried there. Emerson Murgatroyd's engineers and milling engineers, Stockport. There's a couple of control buildings. There's this control building down at the bottom now. There is a control building up there, just in that little piece there, where the guy was before when the boat was coming up. And there's the old motor house at the top, just up there as well. Get you a picture off in a minute. So these bottom control gates houses here, they're open on some of the heritage days, and the eastern control house at the top there, you can go in that some days on what they call the Top of the World tour, when they open that up as well. And then the control house just in there, which was the previous one before they replaced it with the modern digital control house that's up there on the hill.
Now, up there's
There's an overview there, but they've all got monitors, have CCTV on everything there now, so they can see everything that's going on at every level. It's all monitored and computer monitored. They've made a maze out of these balancing weights. Some balancing weights, I mean this maze is what, 50 feet square? So all them balancing weights there. There's some weight in each of these. Section of the old hydraulic. Ram pipe. Cast iron. Serious amounts of bolt holes. This is the little blue tour boat that they use to take people up and down, just to show you a guided tour of how it all works and everything. To turn on a dime inside that lock it can. So here we are now, that tour boat's turned itself around and it's entered the top lock. We're just closing the gates behind it now, and then it will move forward into the actual caisson itself once that's in position. The wedge that blocks the caisson off from the top lock is lifted out of the way. These are all motor worked up nowadays. There's no actual pictures I can see of where the weights, counterbalance weights went, but it'd be nice to see that. It's a shame they didn't re-put them back on. I know they don't use them anymore. There must have been some operation getting that to work in its day. In 1908 it was motorised to make life a lot easier. They even included electric lights for the staff operating the small buildings down below. And there are still a lot of the buildings there. The boiler buildings are still there, and you can see them. And you can just see now that there's a canal boat just entered the bottom caisson that's waiting. That's a hydraulic ram there that will lift this up in a minute. And it's quite a quick operation. It takes a while though for distributing the weight and both. Once it's at the top and the bottom, you have to balance the weight up then to make sure there's not going to be any untoward extra weight in one of the caissons when you open the lock gates. So that's the slow part of the operation. The actual lifting is quite quick. So whilst this whole operation's been ongoing, there's been a bloke at the top and a bloke at the bottom keeping an eye on the ascending and descending caissons, and also the lock gates at the bottom. They're in control of them. And those are interlocked. Once they got everything in the right order, they press the release buttons. That goes to the automatic control system, which monitors everything in the control room, and then it allows it to work. And they can, like I say, they can work that in auto mode. The system works itself with just a bit of human input to double check everything, or it can work in completely manual mode. So that's the Anderton Boat lift, a different means of working things hydraulically using water. We've seen Wheel Martyn, the very early system, and we manually use water there to drive a water wheel. And hope you've enjoyed the video.